Hello, hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of Weederlight. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are in for an absolute treat today, and we're really talking about some a really amazing topics that I personally love. And I think right now there's a lot of conversation about a lot of topics that me and my friend Raven are going to talk about today. But before we unpack so much like self-love and narcissism and empath and all of the things, I have to introduce my friend. So without further ado, Raven Scott is an amazing human being that is doing awesome things in awesome ways. She is a narcissist abuse survivor. She's a recovery mentor, author, host, and executive producer of Empath and the Narcissist podcast. And she's embraced her solo path and dominates breaking toxic ancestral patterns. I mean, God bless. She's also are we obsessed or are we obsessed? What? She also, which is so fucking badass, she's an ambassador of gaining your sparkle back after narcissistic abuse, which, again, God bless. And she mentors and helps empaths heal from that black sheep wound, which we got to talk about, through all of her different transformational exercises. And she believes that we all are deeply here for a purpose. I can go on and read her accolades. Is that a word? Accolades and all of the amazing things about her. But we got to just chat. We just got to chat and just talk about all the amazing things that you're doing. So without further ado, literally, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm truly grateful to be here.
Oh, oh my God, there's literally so much to unpack. And the first one that really sticks out for me is because I think so many people feel it is the narcissist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we unpack what that looks like, what that means? And I have to take a breath on that. How did you yourself and then help others heal from that and recognize in a way it's a superpower? What was your journey with that?
Oh gosh, yeah. I've always wanted to please my family as a little child. I always wanted to make sure I was the good daughter. I was always praised. I sought my self-worth outside myself since I was very teeny tiny. And I think part of that is the environment that was stoked there was conditional love going on there. And to be honest, I really didn't realize that until I had my own children and realized I would never do that to my children. I really experienced some very conditional love that they will, debate and gaslight me up, down, sideways, from Sunday to Tuesday, that is not true. And they love me conditionally. But when there's that hug and that there's that verbal I love you from them when I rarely see them, my body recoils and I start to cry. That is when I realized that those were just words. I was raised also in a white evangelical Christian household that was very extreme, to the point where I was in a small Christian school my entire, kindergarten through 12th grade, primary school, all the way through high school. There was no talk about evolution. There was no talk about real science. The earth was only 2,000 years old. Heaven forbid anyone tell my dad that he was from monkeys or ooze. He just totally adamantly denied that. And so I was very sheltered. And this is just the culture that, they clung on to for all of their wounds and their hurts. And I don't blame them. I just choose now to embrace my path. That's not my path. And for a long time, I felt guilty that, and actually verbally guilt you into like, you're on the wrong path. Why are you going down such a dark path? Why did you leave the church? Why don't you just go to church? And even I love her so dearly. My deceased grandmother even said, well, if you don't take your children to church, you might as well send them to hell. It was like that kind of like intense ideology that I really had to battle within myself and embrace. Like, it's perfectly okay for me not to go to church, right? Like, I'm the black sheep. I'm the one they all like don't want to talk to or freaked out about. They don't even understand why I even look at astrology. Like, that's like dark magic and all that stuff, you know? And in order for me to really connect with myself and heal and connect to my intuition, I had to let all of those judgments go. I had to embrace that there's nothing wrong with me. And, you know, it wasn't by my own accord. I am highly grateful that I am partnered with an amazingly wise, yet he has zero tolerance for all the BS, you know, human being where if you've ever watched that movie called Trolls, have you seen the cartoon Trolls?
Yes.
So he's literally, he's Branch and I'm Poppy. Like, it's like the opposite where he's like, weapons, let's get them. Let's make sure we're all prepared. And like hide in the bunker and don't talk to them. And I'm like, come on, we all just need hugs and sprinkles and dance parties. And so it's been a really beautiful balance. And he said one day, he said, what if there's nothing wrong with you? Like, what if there's nothing wrong? Like, I don't know why you keep shoehorning yourself into this negative identity.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, yeah, you're right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That is, that's so freeing because that's like a powerful, how do I say this? We sometimes like, because it's such a taboo, taboo. I'm trying to get my words, and we might need to edit this out because I'm struggling. I'm like, oh, you're on
feeling
it,
so
but
your brain's catching up with your body.
Yeah, I'm like dancing. I'm like, ooh, I'm dancing on something. But that's so helpful. The rainbow, the rainbow sheep, and I think what I'm really wanting to highlight here is how good it was that you found your truth when so often we feel like, especially in conditioning, like, you know, cultural, but also religious conditioning, that feels like that is so unaccessible because we're so into what everyone else thinks and and so the fact that you broke away from that and listened to your truth is so powerful. I know you talked about intuition, and I know you know, astrology and all these like metaphysical things helped you.
Yeah.
What was that the like catalyst to like helping you listen to your truth? Like, what helps you really ground / listen to your personal truth?
Yeah, meditation was my first and primary way to be able to listen to my truth and exercise this muscle of like listening to your own intuition, which when you're constantly gaslit by, you know, selfish, self-motivated people in your sphere, your parents, because of their fear and their beliefs, it's extremely hard to know, what do you believe? You know, when I left my relationship, the romantic relationship, I was like, how in the world did I get here? Like, because I felt like I was a really strong person. It was only because I really never listened to myself. I always was seeking everything outside of myself to validate who I was and to receive love. And that literally is the farthest from what you should be doing to gain that healing and that power. Because we all are powerful when we embrace who we truly are. But you can't do that if you're not investing and spending time with yourself. So for me, meditation is the way to do that. I loved it so much that I actually got certified as a meditation teacher. Didn't know what I was going to do with it. I was just like, I need to go as deep as I can in this because it was just so powerful and transformative for me.
Yeah, that is awesome. Because I think it's so funny. We talk about like intuition and all these like amazing things. And I think so often people are like, how do I do that? How do I access that? And so I'm so glad you made the bridge between meditation, or if meditation feels like way too far out or too like intense, it's like stillness, quieting your mind, like slowing down. Like, I'm grateful that you bridge that for people, because I think,
Yeah.
you know the deal. Like, we're in a
Explain.
community right now. It's like, yeah, it's like buzzwords like intuition, be in your truth. And it's like, that's all sounds fabulous, but what the fuck does that mean? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
How
So
do
I'm
I
so
do
grateful
that?
that you're like, yeah, like, oh, that's cool. Like, what does that entail? So I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that you highlighted how to, or how you really started to do that. I feel like I have to, well, obviously, but like, because we're going to talk about this, but I have to ask, because this is such a big part of your work. Can you talk to us about, well, okay, I'm going to jump. We'll go back to a more basic question, but I have to jump.
Yeah.
Do you think empaths are more naturally attracted to narcissists or vice versa? Like, what do you think the empath slash narcissist connection is? And there might not be one. I'm just curious, because I know this is like so your body of work, but like, do you think there is a connection, not from a place of wrongness or shame, but like, do you think there's like an energy brewing under the surface between empaths and narcissists?
Yeah. There's definitely a magnetic pull. And because empaths have been taught their whole lives that they're too sensitive and that they're just kind of like woo-woo out there, if they really embraced it and they start talking about it. And you're trying to always stay in this inner circle of the tribe so you don't get kicked out, so you still feel safe. And as being a highly sensitive person, it can feel really unsafe to be in your body, who you are. And when you do that, you start to listen to all the lies. And then you have all these wounds and these kind of like you swept them under the rug because you're just trying to survive in this world. And as you have all these wounds, they're kind of leaking out energetically. And the narcissist also has wounds. They have huge gaping hole wounds. They're like emotional zombies walking around, ignoring the fact that they need to heal. They won't heal. And so they're always attracted to that powerful light source that the empath has. And as you're leaking out, your boundaries are low because of whatever happened in your childhood, trauma, coercion, manipulation, all the things just to try and feel safe. They like latch onto that. It's like a magnet. And you, again, I have to refer to Poppy, you see everything beautiful in everybody. So you're like, oh, this person's great. Let's trust them implicitly right away. Because, if I wouldn't do it, no one would do it. But that's something that you need to protect yourself and guard against, to not be ignorant as that empath. And so they latch onto you. They love you. They love bomb you. You become intensely like literally chemicals in your brain get hooked like a drug on each other. And as they start to mistreat you, then you start to make excuses for them and then feel responsible for them to heal or feel responsible to repair who they are. And then you get stuck in this vicious cycle of like, they're abusing you. You make excuses. Oh, it's not their fault. I did this to make them angry. You feel responsible. And then you're literally just sitting there in this relationship as this like rag doll, as opposed to embracing your power and saying, nope, I do not deserve this treatment. Thank you. Goodbye. And that it all goes back to our childhood trauma, unhealed wounds of our childhood trauma.
Yeah, and I'm like, ugh, like the thing I gasp at is like, it's so genius because ding, ding, ding. I know for me personally, I always feel bad. And I think what's so genius is it's like, call it religious, call it spiritual. For me, I have used at times, I'm going to be honest, spirituality against me. And spirituality has changed my life. And I'm really genius in using spirituality as a weapon against me. So if I know someone's like abusive or bad, I'm like, yeah, but that's not nice. They're suffering. It's okay. And it's like, and that's not very spiritual or kind to create boundary. And it's really challenging and I really have to work through it. Like I have to do it in life. Also with like certain clients that I know there's some narcissism, but I'm like, it's okay. It's not kind to shut them out. Like I have had to really work through that. Like again, especially in this type of business, holding space for people to create clear boundaries because that is the most kind thing to do, but it's so fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. So I want to talk about the empath's journey, and then I want to talk about the narcissist's journey, because I think, again, I know I'm like, blah, blah, like, I want to talk about that too, because again, like intuition and some of these, like, I think narcissism is a big buzzword right now, where people that, and this is no shade, but we're throwing it around on TikTok, we're throwing it on Instagram without like a proper diagnosis, and we're like, they're narcissistic, they're this, and it's like,
we're blaming everybody. It's like
on.
Someone does a selfish act and they're a narcissist.
Yeah, they're a narcissist. Like, wait, hold on. Like, I'm glad that this conversation is being brought to light, but there needs to be some like shake, rattle, and roll, and like real truth from here.
Yeah.
So if it's cool. Yeah, right, as with everything, yep. As I'm like on a fucking TikTok spiral last night till 3 a.m.
That's why I deleted TikTok from my phone. I just couldn't handle the energy.
I know. I know, I'm like, fuck, why is this? This is just so tempting. But is it cool if we separate and talk about, first and foremost, empaths and how we create those boundaries? What does that look like? What do you suggest? How do you hold people through that? And then we'll talk about like what the fuck actually really is a narcissist.
Yeah, absolutely. Empaths, like I said, they are highly sensitive people. If you've ever noticed, which I do this all the time still, and I'm an aware empath, it's like you go out in public and you can hear literally every conversation going on around you. You can see the uncomfortableness. You can see the conflict. You can see the child, with the anxiety. You can like feel and hear and see everything. And if you don't put up that empath protection bubble around your aura, like we are bodies, right? We have this physical, like building of a body. Our soul is in it, and our energy is magnetic, and it like is up and around us, right? A lot of people talk about chakras and that. Like that's why we can feel like when someone's inside our bubble, like they get too close and we can't see them, you can actually feel the energy changing. Like you can feel them invading your energy. So as empaths, you're almost like a sponge, your energy field, and you're like magnetizing all this energy into your sponge. And if you're not careful, you then take that on into your body. And then you become anxious, you become exhausted and, overwhelmed and run down, and you have all these mysterious illnesses. And it's just because you are not being aware, or you could be aware, like I said to me, like if you find yourself drifting off, like eavesdropping and not paying attention to what's right in front of you, you've let your empath guard down and you're like getting sucked into that energy field over there. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're aware of it. You put up your guard and your bubble. And this goes with everybody. I'm not going to say like only special people are empaths. Like everyone, I think, is born with the ability to be an empath. Some are highly sensitive in the sense that they really like express it more on the outside, and some are highly sensitive and they've been heavily conditioned and just from life experiences realize that it's not safe to express it on the outside. So they may appear very stoic, but they're very empathic as well. It's just kind of like connection to that intuition. Those who have taken the dark side, right, the narcissist, the dark path, I wouldn't define them as empaths because they've completely shut down. They've built up a brick wall and a steel wall because they're like, not going there, not allowing myself to be sensitive to that. And, empaths relating to other people, like that's kind of how we can thrive and evolve, socially with each other, is by being empathic. So... yeah, it's actually a superpower, but it can be, like you said, it can be like a crutch when you're not being aware and you're allowing that sponge to be just like letting every single thing into it.
I'm like, I'm not really laughing, but I'm like laughing because it's like, duh, like I've been on this journey for so many fucking years. I know I'm an empath. I've done all the things, like, and it's so funny because I'm having such a simple moment where I'm like, oh, I thought everyone was an empath. Like, I know, I'm just like, doesn't everyone experience, like, I genuinely know that everyone's not, but I'm like, doesn't everyone live this way? You know what I mean? Like, what a moment of it. Like, I know that, of course, but like, moment of ignorance, like, I feel, don't we all no, like have these sensations that we feel the people talking and we see the anxiety and stuff. I'm like, don't we all have this? But I'm like, it's so fascinating that that's not everyone.
Yeah.
That's okay, but that's not everyone's experience. I'm like, oh, that's so mind-boggling to me. Like, I know that conceptually, but I'm like, no. And I think that's part of I know, again, like how I use this as a weapon against me. And I know some of my clients do this too, is I'm like, but I want them to be. Like, I trust that they're a really good person. And it's not like villainizing them or making them wrong, but there's like this like hope that you know what I mean? That this like hope that we're like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And it starts to become, you know the deal, like abusive towards ourselves. Like I said, in the past, I let so many people in, God bless them, as clients. Now I have a much more discerning, but I knew they were taking advantage and I felt the energy suck and I was like, it's okay. They need it. And I'm like, ew, what the fuck? Like, why am I like, what is happening here? So we talked about boundaries, but like, can we talk about like the self-love? Because that for me, I was like, ooh, there's something weird. Like I have some martyr flavor going on. I have some low self-esteem. Like what was happening? So that really like opened my eyes of like, why am I taking this like on the reg? And so geniusly became a coach. Like, so can we like unpack, like, obviously we did boundaries, but can we like talk in like the self-love lane and what that looks like?
Yeah, the self-love is really what develops your muscle to be able to draw the boundaries. And a boundary is essentially like expressing a need. And it can be expressing a need that you don't want something in your life. And it can be expressing a need of what you do want in your life. And if you don't know that, because you haven't stopped and reflected, you haven't done any journaling, and sometimes you have done a cajillion pages of journaling, but you're like still like spewing like this happened and that happened. And why did this person do that? Like it's all that external focus again. So the self-love is that internal focus, is finding yourself. You know, my favorite meditation to do and recommend is the inner child meditation, where again, a lot of us have childhood trauma, especially with the lack of emotional tools our parents' generation had and their parents' generation had. And it's reparenting ourselves. It's like dropping all those expectations and burdens and fears that you're still carrying, you know, of your parents that they've given to you as a child, and releasing all that and just spending time with your child self that took on those burdens, letting them go, and just figuring out what do you want, and what do you, as a wise little child in myself, like what do you need? And that is part of that self-love, is just investing in the relationship with yourself, because you need to reparent yourself. You need to grow up out of that stuck little wounded child to be able to say, I deserve to have peace. So no, I'm sorry. You know, I have a full load of clients, you know, whatever excuse you want to make, you know, you sense it already. You say, nope, I am not that person for you. There will be some other person out there for them that's maybe stronger or maybe more direct for them that they need to find. So you actually are being kind with your boundaries, because your body is feeling like, nope, I can't help them. This is really triggering for me. Like they're going to suck my energy. And there'll be someone else out there in the universe that can help them, that has maybe a stronger guard up. Like I said, you know, you don't have to be highly sensitive and have no guard to be an empath. The goal is to start to build up a drawbridge where you can have your guard up, let it down when you see fit, have your guard up, let it down when you see fit, versus, hey, everyone, come on in and destroy my house, you know?
It's so true. And I often see this with amazing clients that are empaths. And honestly, myself, like there become a resentment can start to form. Like I see a lot of times, because they don't have either the awareness that they're, and this is for a lot of people I see, not even clients, but like a lot of people I see, they're not aware that they're empaths, or they are, and they don't have the tools yet, or they don't have the awareness yet to build up that space. And that's, you know, it's so funny. That's why our work is so interconnected because I help, you're helping people. We're doing the same thing, helping people self-love enough to, boundaries, self-love to make sure, okay, like you said, like I'm going to lovingly, God bless you, but you're not going to be like intertwined into my stuff. And like I said, so I see a lot of clients, I'm sure same with you, that when they first walk through the door, they don't even know they're an empath, or they do, and they're overwhelmed by that. And then they're really resentful. And they have a lot of resentment because they said yes to everyone. They let everyone in, and they're like, like it's like rage. Like, why did I do that? And like, it can sometimes feel a little tormented. Yeah.
And can I, something keeps popping in my head and bringing up when you say that. I think it goes back to also the overconfidence, or I'll so be so bold to say arrogance of our own ego and self, saying, I can fix everybody. I can help everyone because I know best, where that's not true and it's not helpful for you. And so when you kind of have that mindset, then you approach every scenario, and then you don't put boundaries up. You don't say certain things that you should to be able to have your needs met, to have your energy preserved. It's really not the other person's fault if they didn't know that wasn't, that was too much for you.
Exactly.
And everyone kind of approaches the thing like, okay, I'll request it. And they can always say no. But the highly sensitive people who have childhood trauma, who have unresolved healing that they need to do, they can't say no. They feel like they can never say no because, again, they're linking their self-worth to what's outside of them, right? To the tribe and friends and clients, seeing how great they are, being accepted and loved. And so that's never going to be a good solution. You're always going to end up in resentment because you're out of alignment with yourself and your soul by overextending yourself and all those things.
Yeah, that's such a helpful note because I personally, I really had to work through that. When it was like coming to a head years ago, I was like, okay, like I really have to look at this. And I was like, I'm feeling resentment, but like they don't know. And me saying it like once, maybe that they didn't hear it. Maybe it wasn't as clear. So I think that's really a helpful note because for me, I really had to damn it, I hate this because this is going against all of my conditioning and everything I know, but I have to be more firm in my boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about, because I know we talked about this briefly, but can we talk about what is a true narcissist? Because again, we're throwing that, people throw that word around all the time, that's narcissistic, that's a narcissist, but what is a real definition of a narcissist?
Yeah, so it is an actual psychological diagnosis called NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. And it's similar, where it's like a fixated personality disorder. So similar to OCD, there's just this fixation on self-preservation and making sure that they are always above someone else. It comes from a lot of wounding. Again, empaths, we can't fix them. This is not our job. And therapists even maybe have a goal of trying to shift that 10% down and really just allowing, helping them to be aware. But most of it's not diagnosed because the whole point of a narcissist is that they know everything and they are the expert and they're perfect, and everyone else around them, they always blame everyone else, is the problem. So they never go to therapy. So it always kind of goes undiagnosed. And there's so many points to kind of point out, but the main one is that they lack empathy to the point where they're just cold-hearted, care zero about human suffering, about hurting your feelings. They're only focused on their own selfish needs, emotional needs, and what they preserving their image of who they are out to the public. So they're very charming. And that's their biggest thing, is to always make sure that they have the mask up and the smoke and mirrors are all in place. And if you threaten that, then they will smear you. They will tell everyone else that you are the problem. Whatever they are, they will project onto you to make sure that they look perfect in the eyes of everybody else, to get their needs met and to look perfect. I mean, like keep talking about like self-identity, self-worth on the outside is unhealthy. That is truly what the narcissist does. That is their main way of understanding who they are and making sure that they're worthy is by their image, their perfect image on the outside, and receiving praise and being able to manipulate others to get what they want.
It's interesting. I mean, you know the deal. Like this could happen from an array of places, but it's interesting because in one example, like both empaths and narcissists could have a similar childhood or background and like just grow up and choose a different, not choose, that sounds too blaming.
Yeah,
you get what
they
I'm saying,
choose.
but have a different.
They choose.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah. That's
Yeah. It's like the dark side,
that
right?
be...
Darth Vader's dark side versus the light side.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
You can have multiple siblings in one household and one ends up a narcissist and the others don't. You know, they might be wounded, but they're not a narcissist. They don't have the NPD. It just depends on the formula, you know, the personality traits, and just again, that choice of like, do I take the easy road and kind of, you know, put the blame on everyone else, or do I really introspect and work on myself and heal my childhood wounds that, you know, you can't control?
Yeah. It's so interesting. And I think that's why some empaths are attracted to some of these people, because it's like, I see you, we've been through the same thing. Like, I think in a way, at least I'm speaking for personal experience, I'm like, I see you, I get it, I got you. And they're like, ah, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's this like
I got
bonding.
Yeah.
They're like, haha, LOL, don't worry, got your number. You know what I mean? But I think it's like from a really pure place of like, oh my gosh, we've been through the same thing and it's okay. Like I can, you know, and it's like, oh, that's so
you can relate, but you can't fix them. Yep.
I know, it's so yeah. How do we be like, it's such a silly question, but like, how do we be good people that like that? I guess it's boundaries, but like, how can we love up? Is it like loving up on them from afar?
Yeah, it's making sure they're not in your inner circle, right? Again, like this whole, our body is a house. Just don't let them inside your house. You know, don't let them inside your inner circle energy. You can love them from afar if and when they reach out, depending on how they're reaching out. Obviously, if they're immediately spewing lies and threats, then you don't interact at all. That's the biggest frustrating and also diffusing thing for the narcissist, is to ignore them, because their whole self-worth is the attention, mostly negative, positive, whatever, any attention from another human being. And, you know, getting them to play in their mind manipulative game. That's like, they get a high off that. So if you want to dispel that, you can still do it with compassion, you know, and protect yourself. Sometimes you need to block their number because you just can't keep reading their awful text. Sometimes, you know, maybe it's a family member in your life and you reach out as often, because typically if they're a family member, you feel guilty about the silence between yourself, or guilty about whatever they've just told you that you made them feel, because they're always playing the victim. So you apologize, you reach out, you are constantly trying to please them so that they're happy. Well, they're never going to be happy. That's kind of the problem with their wounds, is they're approaching it in such the wrong way. So they're never going to be happy. So keeping them on the outer circle. And I think, you know, this is why practicing self-love and compassion is so important, because once you find your own inner child and your own compassion for yourself, you heal, you become strong and rooted like a tree. You shift from being that child into like the mother for yourself. You then have the ability and the wisdom to see them as a little child. So whenever you interact with them, just interact with them like you were talking to a toddler. Like, would you put up with the tantrum from a toddler? I mean, the best way is not to get in a fight with a toddler. That never works, right? So you walk away, you take a breather, you're calm, and you say, sorry, you know, I get it. And that's all. You like really short answers. And that's really where you have to be, is, you know, if you need to still interact with them, it's very limited emotional connectedness, but still with compassion, because yes, they were a child. They are a human in the end. And it keeps you in that low level toxic environment when you're constantly like hating them for what they're doing, or constantly trying to fix them or trying to lecture them. Like, it just won't work. It literally will not work. Yeah.
And it's so wild because it's like, it's funny. Because I'm like, woo, like, I've done a lot of work on this and still working through it. Like,
Me too.
Yeah, I'm like, geez, like,
It's a
and it's
lifelong
like,
process.
it really is. And it's not from a bad place, but I see myself also go with me on this, like, not from a narcissistic place, but like a God complex, a Jesus complex, of like, come one, come all, it's okay. And like my friends and people comment like, you literally have such crazy stories. And it's like, yes, because I would let the entire world in. And I'm like, yes, like, it's all right. And I think for me, like, it brought, once I was in it and saw it, it brought a lot of shame. And it brought, like I said, shame, resentment, overwhelm. So I know we talked about self-love, compassion. Okay, so my question is, pretend someone's like, holy shit, this is me. Like, I'm in, you've been in it, we've both been in it, like the storm of like, fuck, like I'm realizing like, I'm putting myself in a lot of these situations, whether they're narcissistic or like, ooh, like if like toxic energy, like
drama, right?
Yeah, drama. Yep, like I'm just like, ugh, like I feel the claws are like the energetic claws in me. I just feel like in the stew. What would be some like first steps or steps to like forgive yourself and to like slowly get out of that stew? Like, what would you recommend for some people?
Gosh, I think the first step is to start not giving a shit, right? Because the way that they pull you into their drama is through guilt. And like, oh, but I really like, like let's say you're trying to not drink alcohol. Let's for instance,
Right.
When you get together with a friend, oh, don't let me drink alone. It's like, wow, that if you don't really realize it, because a lot of people talk about it, but that is a guilt-ridden statement. Like, no, I want my integrity. I'm choosing to fast from it right now or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
So small little things like that occur. So not caring what they say, right? Like that judgment and that shame of like, oh, they're going to boot me out of the tribe.
Yes.
It can be really scary because these are the people, this is all you know. And this behavior and pattern is all you know. But there are rainbows on the other side of the storm. There's the light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to be able to look at your own dark shadow work, and walk through the dark tunnel to get to the light on the end.
Yeah, that is, yeah, I think that's really helpful, like to have us frame it in that way, because it's like, it feels like what you're talking about too is so primal, like being kicked out of the community, the tribe. It's like, we can say like consciously, like, or we could say, conceptually, like, yeah, that's fine. But it's like, like it
it's not
deep.
Fine.
Yeah, like it triggers deep things within us to be, it's belonging.
That's why we put up with the abuse. And it's like, well, why didn't she or he leave like way sooner? Well, it's a lot more complex than that. And it makes sense when you're out of it and you're out of that mud and muck. But yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, it's really, I'm really grateful that you helped frame that, because that's a big one. I also wanted to ask really quickly, because again, we talk about narcissism being a buzzword, empathy being a buzzword. Can you briefly give us a cliff notes of love bombing? And what was the other one? There was another one that people use a lot. It's like a TikTok Instagrammable.
Gaslighting?
Yes, gaslighting. Again, like there's some people are like, yeah, they gaslit me. And I'm like
what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, so I hear, and I clients sometimes are like, I think they gaslight me, or I think they love bomb me, but like, what does that actually mean? So like, can we like dispel the shame and just like, can you give us a quick and dirty, like, what do those two things mean?
Yeah. So love bombing is a huge influx. Like, imagine you're getting thrown like powdered, like what are those bath bombs, right? Yes. And they're just throwing them at you like, oh, look at this. Here's the gift here. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, I love you so much. It's like, you just met them. How could they love you so much? But they pour all of this love and affection onto you really quickly in a short amount of time when you first meet them. And They wine and dine you. They take you on like amazing trips that you've never been, right? They like take you all over the world. Depends on what their means are. And they are always like posting and texting you. But then they start to like slowly creep in like, oh, post a picture of us here. That was so awesome, right? Like that they start to kind of like control what you're posting out there again to make sure that their image is perfect. And you're like, oh, that's so cute. He or she loves me. They want me to post about our date. Like, no. Like if they love you, they don't care if you post on social media. They're perfectly happy just spending time with you. So there's all this like intense amount of affection. So they get your brain chemicals of dopamine up. And you're just like, wow. And this can happen in any relationship in the beginning when you're dating. But the tricky part about it with a narcissist is, like I said, they start to take all of those things they've done for you and use it against you by like, ask you for a favor. Remember, please, can you please do this for me? I took you on this trip to Tahiti, remember? Like, and they start to use it as a weapon. And then they start to use it to control you, like posting different, like telling you what to do with your content, telling you what to do. And then they'll start to kind of ease in, like telling you what to watch. It's like, oh, let's watch this tonight. Not that other show that you like. That's so dumb and like base. They start to kind of like slide in all their little tiny controlling ideologies. And since you're so filled up with love bombing and like affection and all the other amazing things they did for you, you ignore that. And then all of a sudden you're in knee deep thick with like in shit with this person who's now berating you about how you failed them. It's like, wait a second, there's always a two-way street in an argument here. So take your responsibility too.
Yeah.
So the love bombing is their very strategic way of getting you hooked in, hook, line, and sinker, and gathering you as a trophy to put you up on their shelf. And then they can discard you, they can abuse you, because now you're on the shelf and you're solid. You're locked in. You've moved in, maybe. Like everything happens really fast with them. Saying I love you, getting together, like moving in, maybe even getting married. It just depends on the level of how much with a narcissist.
Yes, that's so helpful. Thank you. And then what about gaslighting?
Gaslighting is actually came from an old movie about this guy who kept turning up and down the gas lights in an old house. And he kept lying about it. She's like, did you turn this light down? And he's like, no. He kept lying about it. And she eventually in the end, it's like a Twilight Zone type of a movie. She like went crazy. And he like kept turning the lights and he kept lying about it. That's the same thing with this whole gaslighting concept is that you will have, let's say, a conversation. It'll come up later and like in an argument, and they will literally lie to you and say, no, I didn't say that. And you're like, I'm pretty sure you did. Like, I have a really good memory. I feel like you did. But then they take all these lies and they start to spin your brain upside down. Like they're very good at lying and switching the narrative and mixing the truth with the lie. And so, you might share with them that I feel like really upset when you say this to me, like a normal conflict, right? And so they will spin that and they will say, well, they will turn it however they can. I always am like kind of at a loss for words for these examples because there's like a million ways that they could do it. But it's like they literally don't, all they're doing is they're not acknowledging, I'm sorry, that you felt that way. I didn't intend. That's how a normal response should be. For them, they will lie to you. They will say, I didn't say that. They will say, well, you felt this because of that. And then all of a sudden, there's just like this used car salesmanship about this new idea that they're putting in your head that is covering up and gaslighting what you actually said and the actual truth. So they get you super confused and you literally feel like that woman in the movie, like you're going crazy.
I'm like literally shook because I love that example of the light on and light. Like that's such a simple example of what it is. this is a sidebar question that I'm like, like because we could unpack this for days, but I'm like, I'm so curious. I know sometimes with, and by no means I'm an expert at all on this, but I know with borderline personality disorder, sometimes they say people, sometimes borderline people can push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, and usually children of borderline either become borderline or they become catchers, meaning kind of like the empath of like
Mm.
they dance around, they wiggle around, like, okay, whatever you need, like I will shapeshift for your love. And what I'm having a moment about is like, is that the same deal with the narcissistic parent?
Same exact deal. Again, I'm not an expert, but I have to ask one of my guests. I think it's in the same category of borderline. I think it's like, you
Mm,
know how there's a couple like in a certain category and
yes.
subcategory? Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, holy
Exactly.
shit.
Push, pull. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes it because I'm thinking about it. If you were a narcissistic parent, it makes sense that the child would, I mean, obviously everyone's different, but it makes sense that two options could be you become a narcissist or like borderline, you're a catcher or extreme empath of like, it's okay. Like gaslighting becomes normal. Like you're like, it's okay. That's okay.
Because narcissists, everything of them that has been a product of their life or whatever is in their sphere is a direct reflection on their value in the world. So if you are not aligned with their beliefs or behaviors that they approve of, then you're not like giving off a good example of who they are. Like it's like totally in an enmeshed, unhealthy way of looking at how people should be independently in the world and act and relate to each other and love each other. It's just highly toxic and intertwined, vines of a mess of emotions and ideas.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing too is like, especially obviously us, because we're like empath powerhouses. So
Yeah.
I'm glad, thank God we found this work. But like, I think for anyone, even regardless if you're not an empath, I think having awareness about this is important for anyone. So,
Yeah.
because we all need boundaries, we all need self-love, we all need to be like, okay, God bless that person, but they're not coming into the house. You know what I mean? Like, I think this conversation is important for all. And also, especially it's important to get real sober with yourself and to be like, ooh, like maybe sometimes I could not, to the full, go with me on this. Like, oh, I could have a like, oh, that was a little
Totally.
gaslighty of me. Like, that was a little bizarre. Like, God bless, I'm going to be kind to myself, but like, that was a little weird. Like, I'm going to be more conscious about, like, I think everyone could benefit from this conversation, what's coming into your world and also how we're showing up. And we're not like repeating patterns, vomiting out patterns, doing the same things. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really helpful.
Yeah, that's how you break the pattern is being conscious and aware. I admittedly had a lot of narcissistic behavioral tendencies that I would call like just strong ideas. And again, God bless my partner. He'd be like, nope, you're definitely guilting me right there. Or you're guilting them, or that's not healthy. Do you want to treat your children like your mom treated you? And I'd be like, oh, thank you. Let me introspect. Let me change that. Let me heal that wound. Let me correct and rewrite my neurons so I don't do that again. And that's the
Yeah.
difference between a healthy person wanting to grow and an NPD diagnosable narcissist who doesn't want to grow. And you can't help because they don't want to grow.
Yeah, it's wow. It's so funny. I was like, this is an off the wall question that we didn't discuss. I was like, what books do you recommend? I'm like, wait, I didn't even mean to like accidentally pitch you, but I'm like, wait, because I'm thinking it from it. Here's the thing, like so much of my work, and I know you too, is like. At first, I know when I'm like, like I'm a reader, or I lied. I am a reader, but I'm also an information gatherer. So I'm like, oh shit, like this resonates. So I'm like, listen to the podcasts, read the books. And then you
Right.
know the deal. It's like, then, okay, how do we embody this? How do we live this? And so I can already hear people, because I already hear myself of like, ooh, like, like what are books? What are resources? So I obviously want to talk about your book, duh. But are there other other resources that you're like, in addition to my book, because my book's amazing, from a very healthy place? Like, are there other resources in addition that you're like, ooh, I love this? Obviously working with you, but like, were there any
Yeah.
groups, resources that you're like, ooh, this really helped me and held me?
Yeah. Quite a few. My book is wonderful. I would definitely, I'm always still humble about it because I can't believe I actually wrote a book. I never imagined that would be like a career path. But yeah, I just wrote it out of experience. So I weave like my story, and I don't give too much of I give the juicy details, but I don't bore you with my story. And then I give like a beautiful like empowerment message out of it and lesson. And then at the end of every chapter, I have an exercise onto how to heal that part or that wound, that's come up. And I start in childhood and go all the way through. And the last chapter also includes human design, which I love that I found to just like find how unique I am, right? Again, like I am not like everyone else. I don't need to act like everyone else. I have my unique purpose, my unique calling and energies, and I have an actual map that shows me exactly what it is. So how cool is that? So I share Human Design 101 in the end of the book as well. So I help people with their readings of like self-discovery, reading their human design chart and really pulling things out. It's like their body knew it, but like when they hear me read it, they're like, oh yeah. And then they write it down, and then it acknowledges it, pulls it out from the closet, and then they get to like embrace and enhance it. And that's such a cool thing to witness.
Oh, I love that. I will also want to talk about where people could find the book and find you. But before we do, something that I was like, oh my gosh, wait, how did we not talk about this? Because I think we could talk for days. So I was like, how did I forget? But it's something I have to bring up is I know part of your work, obviously, is all of this. In addition to, you truly believe everyone has a purpose. Everyone is here for a reason. Can you give us like your like spark note, cliff note, like belief about that? And like how, again, what a big question, but like how people can start to play with that energy and like start to like show up for their purpose, even if they don't know what it is.
Yeah. If you don't, you can pull up your free chart of human design for free. And if that kind of feels weird for you, don't want to do that. You can just start noticing like what makes you excited. Like,
Yes.
What are some different like patterns, journal out different patterns in your life that you see. Like they may be tied to something weird or like in your past, and they may have been applied in the wrong way due to whatever you were working on and your immaturity. We all kind of have that immature stage, experimental stage, and then that mature stage. But just kind of take a look at those patterns and be like, oh, like I always have this theme and thread of leading or expressing myself or being highly creative or having really weird ideas that scare people when I share. Like all of those are actually part of your purpose and your theme of why you're here. And you get to hone in like, what do you enjoy doing? What lights you up? Mixed with that theme of like being really innovative and crazy.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I always ask this because we touched on so many subjects, but I want to pass the mic before we obviously find out where to find you and all that good stuff. I'd love to pass the mic over one more time and ask, like, is there anything before we wrap that you're like, hold on, is there any last like wisdom, insight that you'd love to impart on us before we transition out?
Yeah. When we're dealing with a narcissist, information and knowledge is key. And the other part that's key is knowing that you're worthy of whatever your dreams and desires are, because they are an expert at making you feel like shit and that you're not worthy of it. So I want to empower you with that I affirm that deep down inside in your body, you have a dream and a desire to be healthy, a desire to be abundant, right? A desire to go after your dreams, that you are worthy of doing that, and you will not be able to achieve them while you have them in your sphere. So gathering the knowledge, gathering the ammunition that you're not going to argue with them about, because that's a waste of energy. Gathering the ammunition for yourself to know that I'm making the right decision by, moving out, finding an escape plan, making a safe environment for my children that they don't deserve to be, growing up in seeing that, mommy or daddy can treat me this way. And the knowledge and all of that is so many resources. I have so many incredible guests on my podcast. One recently that's airing is Bumped, Bruised, and Blessed. She is an amazing resource if you have a narcissistic mother or an inkling that your mother isn't as loving as she could be. And you can kind of dive into that. And then Narc Abuse TV, they both have a YouTube channel. NATV is a resource where he has like hundreds and maybe thousands by now of different narcissistic experts as guests. Like you could just start with those two. And there's so many other amazing guests that are on my podcast too, that you can just kind of go through, listen to them, and find them as well, and just kind of dive deeper in the rabbit hole of what is narcissism.
Yes, that again, and this is for everyone, for empaths, forever, just to have awareness. And I want to highlight what you said, like it hit like, oh shit, that's a good one. Like it really having this energy so close to us, it makes it really hard for us to live our desires and our truth because whew, so thank you that like this is self-care, this is self-love, to have healthy boundaries. You can love them afar, you could send them love, you could whatever, do all the things for, but to be so intertwined is, it's counterintuitive to thriving.
They are an energetic black hole, and that's actually something that the source shared with me in my last few days in my relationship. Was I physically could see myself being pulled into this dark vortex. And there was like a dark mist in the room with the lights on. And I was like, I got to get out of here. It was like, just like my visual aha moment that they energetically pull you down.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. This has been amazing. I know, like I said, you have a freaking amazing podcast, amazing book. Where can people find you? Like, tell us where they can be in your presence and how they can learn and all the great things.
Thank you. Yeah, my book is on Amazon. I'm so excited to have the Audible version out very soon, like in a couple days. And you can find me on Instagram at Raven Scott Show. Again, my book is Empath and the Narcissist by Raven Lee Scott. And that's kind of mainly where I hang out. And obviously my podcast is called Empath and the Narcissist. So if you want to grab your free sparkle reminders, I send every Saturday, and also a free workshop on how to recover, like a narcissist abuse recovery workshop. You can get all of those on my website, ravenscott.show/free workshop. The free sparkle reminders are on my book landing page, which would be Empath and the Narcissist.
Yes, thank you. And again, I have to highlight, like, we talk about thriving, growth, expansion, and we can't do that without your work. Like, that is such a huge foundational piece. So, like, thank you so much for being here, for all of your work. Like, it's so important. I can't wait. I'm signing up for all of the above. Like, I'm like, bring it to my inbox. I can't wait. I'm like ordering it on Amazon. So seriously, thank you so much for being with us today. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here, and ironically grateful to experience what I have experienced to help shift the collective's energy and awareness about narcissism.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today, and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.